in trouble. Holyfield smothers Tyson. Looking to put Tyson down and end the fight. Tyson in dire trouble. He's saved by the bell.
Mike is out on his feet.
The championship rounds, round 11. And now here we go. We are looking at a sports legend in the purple trunks, Evander Holyfield. Holyfield continues to dig in. A left hook to the head. He's got Tyson in trouble. Tyson's ready to go. A split right hand. The Topper stops the fight. And Holyfield has...
I can't believe what I'm seeing. It's the most unbelievable thing I've ever been privileged to witness.
Mayhem. It is Bedlam.
This is the Boxing Talk and Old Time Boxing Show on Ustream, presented by GAR 1680. Here is your host, Paco Rivera.
Good evening and welcome to another broadcast of the GAR 1680 North Carolina Boxing Talk Radio Show. I am Paco Rivera. It is Sunday, August 17th, 2014, just past 8 p.m., talking about what's going on in boxing here in North Carolina. Actually, I've got a very special show lined up for you today. We will be talking about something that a lot of people probably don't know about: college boxing. And in a few moments, we will be talking to guests of the show. Okay, we got Zaki Haidary, boxing club president at the University of North Carolina at UNC in Chapel Hill, as well as Blake Lozzi, secretary of the boxing club. But first, this show is brought to you in part by Mid-South Boxing Fitness Center. Mid-South Boxing is located in Concord, North Carolina, for all your MMA and boxing training needs, or if you just want a place to get a good workout, give Mike Kane a call at 704-960-8878. See continuous updates about the boxing scene in North Carolina on our blog at gar1680.blogspot.com, and follow me on Twitter at gar1680. When people think of college sports, they typically think of college football or basketball or maybe even baseball. It just so happens that many colleges throughout the country also have a boxing program, and they travel around the country competing just like the school's other sports programs, including two colleges right here in our state that compete in boxing tournaments: East Carolina University in Greenville and UNC, the home of the Tar Heels, in Chapel Hill. College football, basketball, and other sports, as many of us may know, are sanctioned, overseen, or regulated, if you will, by the NCAA. The NCAA sets the rules and guidelines and suspends players when things go wrong, sometimes suspending an entire school. Well, the NCAA stopped sanctioning college boxing in 1960. Yeah, 54 years ago. After the death of a college boxer who was competing in a bout, the NCAA decided they wanted no more part of it. Here's a bit of history, folks. In 1952, Dimitri Homer died of a head injury suffered during a college football game. In 1967, Dave Bliss of the College of San Mateo died of a head injury in a football game against Santa Monica City College. In 1968, tailback Douglas Bowe of Princeton died in a college football game. And as recent as 2011, 3 years ago, Derek Shealy, a fullback with Frostburg State University, died after suffering a brain injury from a helmet-to-helmet hit in practice. And there are many more, and even some deaths that occurred during college basketball games. But boxing, I guess, got a bad rap in college. And boxing as a college sport fell apart following the death of an NCAA sanctioned college fighter. It would be 16 years later, in 1976, that the NCBA, National Collegiate Boxing Association, was formed to begin governing college boxing. And colleges around the country began to flock to sign up to compete against each other. A championship tournament occurred later that year, in 76 when it started. In 2012, just a couple years ago, the USIBA, the United States Intercollegiate Boxing Association, was also organized. Both the NCBA and USIBA are partnered with USA Boxing, the main overseer of all amateur boxing in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. As I said before, we have two colleges here in North Carolina with a boxing club. East Carolina University is sanctioned by the USIBA, and the University of North Carolina, UNC, in Chapel Hill, is sanctioned by the NCBA. And here to talk to us about college boxing are Zach Haidary and Blake Lozzi of the UNC Boxing Club in Chapel Hill. Zach and Blake, welcome, and thank you for taking this time to share your knowledge of the collegiate boxing scene.
Thank you, Paco. Thanks for having us.
Okay, firstly, I'm not sure if you had a chance to hear most of my introduction to the show. Would you say that I got much of it right, or is there something that I should be corrected on?
Definitely. I think you did a great job covering the history. I'll just add that there's actually a third program. They just actually got off the ground last year. Wake Forest is fielding their first teams. Last year they went to a couple competitions, but they're going to be starting up a formal club this year.
Awesome. Okay. And that's a
Wake
good thing,
Forest
of course.
University.
So Wake Forest should be a third college here in North Carolina that will be competing as well with colleges around the country?
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. The more to get involved, the better, right?
Definitely.
Okay. And in what year did UNC begin competitions competing against other schools?
We began in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. It sort of started out informally. And then as more and more interest started popping up on campus, it became more of an organized activity. It actually started out with a couple of students and one of the chemistry professors here, Professor Kropp, actually just using a racquetball court and sort of training informally and competing wherever they could. But, you know, as the years have gone on, interest has definitely expanded, and we're running sort of a more formalized program now.
Okay. Okay, and does the UNC Boxing Club also use the nickname Tar Heels, just like the other sports teams at UNC?
Yep, we do. So we're a recognized student organization, and with that, we have all the rights to use Tar Heels, Carolina. We get to use the Ramses logo. We put all of that on our shirts and our sweatshirts. We actually this year sort of expanded our merchandising, and we came out with hats as well. And we can use those logos, and I mean we make a lot of revenue off of them as long as it's all that money is going to our club, and we're not making any personal profit off of it.
Of course. So it all goes back to the program, so that just everything to make to improve the boxing club at UNC.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And how does collegiate boxing run? Is it seasonally, much like the other sports? You know, does it start at a certain month and end, or how does that go?
Well, it follows the academic year. Most of I guess all of our athletes, they're students first, and then boxing is, you know, the sport or the hobby that they choose. So our tournaments typically start in October, and then they run up until April and May when we have, April when we have our regional and national tournaments.
I see. Now, but is their training pretty much going on all year long?
Yes, sir. We start out, actually, we're going to start waking up at 6. We have a 6 a.m. run tomorrow morning. So we'll have 2 weeks of training camp, and then we'll be running all the way through until nationals.
Okay. And is it fair to say that anyone that would like to enroll with the UNC Boxing Club must also be a full-time student?
That's if they want to compete. So we kind of have two parts to our organization. We have the team, which competes nationally, and in order to compete, you do have to be a full-time student. And then to generate revenue to pay for our traveling and also as a form of community service, we run a club that meets twice a week. And that's open to anyone in the community who's interested in learning more about the sport and in getting in shape.
I see. And where do the students come from, basically? Are they mostly from North Carolina originally, or are they from other parts of the country, or maybe even from around the world?
Honestly, it reflects our student body. So I will say that most of our people definitely are from North Carolina. But one thing that's been really rewarding, I guess, as a club leader, has been able to see how worldwide the sport of boxing really is. I mean, last year we've had people come out from Saudi Arabia, South Korea, and then as well as all over the United States. We've had people from New York, California. I think we had someone stop by for a couple weeks from Alaska. And it's rewarding to see sort of the universality of the sport and the impact it can have in uniting people.
So it's pretty diverse as far as the membership from all different regions?
Yes, sir. Different regions, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different races, different genders. We've got a little bit of everything here.
Awesome. And let's see if we can discuss a little bit about the recruiting situation. Is there like a scholarship program for the boxing club? Because you always hear about how you might have somebody go in with a scholarship into one of the other sports programs, but how about the boxing club? And what kind of recruiting efforts do you have to find prospects?
So our main recruiting takes place on campus. As soon as the school year starts, we put out flyers in all the dorms, especially in the freshman dorms, and try to bring in people. We put up posters in restaurants on Franklin Street. We don't have a formalized system of providing scholarship money or anything like that. It's actually against the NCBA rules. I will say, though, that there's a movement within college boxing, and it's been gaining momentum. I think that we should be recruiting athletes and providing scholarship money and that sort of thing. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of years. But as of right now, most of the colleges that offer boxing programs, it's done completely as an amateur sport, and it's done because the athletes enjoy boxing in its purest form, as opposed to coming here to pay for their school and going pro later on.
I see. So it would almost appear that it's not quite as fair, maybe where the boxing program is kind of like not really being recognized on the level of other college sports, so that scholarships are not allowed.
I guess you could say that, but you have to look at it two different ways. So when I came in as a freshman, that there's nothing I wanted more than to be able to say, I'm a scholarship athlete playing for the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. But as I've grown in the sport and as I've been able to participate in it over the past 4 years, I sort of see the value in being able to take, people who have no experience in boxing at all, have never been exposed to the sport, and really give them a chance to make something of themselves. I'll give an example. One of our female boxers, Michelle Kern, she came in, she played field hockey in high school. She knew nothing about the sport. She came out her freshman year, and then 2 years later, she won a national championship, which, I think is pretty cool, and I don't think that those opportunities would necessarily present themselves if we were more formal with offering scholarship money and paid coaches and things like that.
I see. Okay, so I see that the UNC Boxing Club also has they have their first meeting set for September 3rd. Is that for anyone interested in learning what the program is about? I guess probably from those responding to the flyers that you put up. What do you hope to see happen at that meeting?
We like to get the word out about our organization. I will say that the first 2 weeks of our club, and this is sort of a side battle, I guess, that we have to face, is just teaching people and educating them about the benefits of boxing as a sport. A lot of people come in with preconceived notions. They watch Rocky 2 times. They think it's just a bunch of angry punch-drunk guys hitting each other for fun. But, we try to teach them to appreciate the art and the discipline that it takes to be a boxer. So we try to get that message across, generate interest in it, and then we let all of our participants come out for 2 weeks before having to pay club dues, just to experience working out and learning how to punch and really generate the basics of teach themselves the basics of the sport.
Okay. And if we can get back to this a little bit, I understand the boxing club offers students an opportunity just to train solely for the purpose of physical exercise, which seems to be a little bit about what you were just discussing, and not necessarily compete. So it should be clear to listeners that joining the club doesn't mean they are expected to actually compete. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. And in fact, I would say, 75% of the people who come out are not going to compete. They simply do it to, meet new people and learn a new exercise and a new sport as a whole. And then there's a rigorous, physical qualification you have to make in order to even be considered to be able to compete on the team. So.
Okay, which is basically like most boxing gyms. Normally, you might have a very large membership in a boxing gym, but just a few actually compete. So it's basically the same principle. Are there fees involved? Is there?
Yes, sir. So, so when you're a new member, you come out and the fee is $40, and with that, you receive a T-shirt, a UNC boxing T-shirt. And then you get access to all of our workouts. There's at the start there's 2 a week, and then it eventually moves on to 3 a week. And then we also do social activities, and we have over the past couple of years we've been able to develop some really strong bonds with the community. So you'll get various discounts at restaurants, and whenever there are pro fights in Durham, sometimes we'll get half off of tickets or whatever the case may be. So there are certainly some benefits outside of just the physical activity to joining the organization.
Okay. And I would suppose that the fees are probably different for those who actually want to compete. There's going to be more involved, like travel expenses and such.
Actually, if you are willing to travel with the team and compete, we consider it, such a lengthy time commitment, and so much effort is involved that everything is covered either by the school or by our own funding, through teaching others how to box through our club, or by revenues generated from our T-shirts and sweatshirts and hat sales.
Oh, okay. All right. And about how many athletes do you typically have on a roster during a season? Actually, how about the ones actually competing?
We usually have around 8. And then, it varies with each competition. So the way we do it, we encourage all team members to compete in at least 2 matches per semester. In addition to the tournaments, the regional and national tournaments in the spring. And so, depending on classes and exams and that kind of thing, there's typically 10 or so matches that we can go through in a semester, and, you sign up for what you're able to go to.
Oh, I see. So it's not like a team, basically. It's like individuals go out to various matches on their own?
Well, we travel as a team, so we'll go to a match if there's, 2 or 3 people signed up, and we have a coach, Josh Sokol and Wayne Fouts, and they'll travel with us up to the matches in corner forts and everything like that.
So you have all the support with you. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then how about like male and female? Take last season, for instance. How many male and how many female did you have competing?
So we had 5 males compete and 3 female boxers.
Okay. Pretty much evened out almost. Aside from collegiate tournaments, do athletes on the roster also sometimes sign up for other tournaments around the state or around the country, such as maybe like the Golden Gloves or Invitationals? Or once they're signed up with UNC, do they basically compete strictly in collegiate tournaments with you guys?
It's typically people stay within UNC. We're pretty blessed to be located where we are. A lot of the college boxing is definitely more heavily concentrated up in the north and as well as in the western part of the country. Mm-hmm. So it's not as big of a deal for us to travel, and we have plenty of competition. I will say, though, that for our female boxers, sometimes it's harder for them to find matches, and so oftentimes we do end up sending them to local and regional tournaments outside of collegiate boxing.
tournaments outside of college boxing. Yeah, I hear that a lot about it. It's sometimes difficult to here in our state for some reason to find females that want to compete. When one school competes against another school, how is a winning school declared? Is it by the team that wins the most bouts, or if you can explain to us how that works, because this is all pretty new to me too.
Definitely. So there's two titles that are given out. Say we'll take nationals for instance. You can have an individual national champion, so you'll get the belt and or a medal. I think you usually get a belt, and then there's a team champion who's declared as well, one for male and one for female. And the team championship is based. There's a point system based on how many bouts are won by members of the team, and that's separate from the personal, I guess, national champion. And so what you find is for team championships, there's a significant advantage in fielding a larger team and taking a larger team to nationals.
Okay, so basically, the team, all the boxers with UNC, for instance, will compete against another school, and is there a winning school declared in that situation?
Right. So, let's take for local shows, for instance, the ones that typically occur in the fall. It's just individual matches, and there won't be a school winner declared. It's just on an individual basis. But then at the national level of competition, that's where you see the team championships come into play, and that's determined based on pools and how many bouts are won. And they typically divide it up so that two people from the same school don't have to fight each other.
I see. Okay, and how about, like, let's take again last season for instance. What other colleges did as a team did you go out to compete against?
I'll run through a list. So
sure.
ECU, Maryland, Navy, Virginia Military Institute, VMI, Wake Forest as well, West Virginia University, University of Miami, Ohio, and then in the previous year, if I'm not mistaken, we also competed against the University of Miami in Florida.
Oh, okay. And now, is there like a record, a win-loss situation established?
Yes. So for our team last year, I believe we were 7-7 or 8-7. But what's unique about college boxing, and it took me a year or two to realize this, is that it's different almost from amateur boxing in the sense that we only have 4 years to teach people and to get them into a fight. And so what we end up seeing is that it's your individual record of wins and losses is much less important than how you can fare in the regional and national levels of competition.
Okay, and has UNC reached a regional or finals that you're aware of? Maybe something that's close or leading to a national NCBA championship?
As a team, we have not, but we fielded our first national champion last year, Michelle Kern. And every year for the past 4 years, we've sent an athlete to nationals, and we typically have a very strong showing at regionals. Like I mentioned before, the problem is the size of the team, and a lot of the programs that we compete against, they've been fielding teams, since even before the 70s. And so they have significant momentum in recruiting and just in their programs generally. And that's a significant factor in how well they do at nationals. But with that being said, I would definitely say that our team is growing and interest is growing on campus as well as more people find out about our organization.
Okay. So basically, when we're talking about the nationals, it's getting more to an individual, on an individual basis as far as competing. Is that the case? Okay. Zach, I see that you're not only the president of UNC Boxing, but you also competed.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And how long have you been with UNC altogether?
I'm entering into my fourth year, so I'm entering into my senior year, and I started my first semester of college, just doing the club workout.
Okay, and with the boxing club, what kind of roles have you had during that time? You've competed, and you've gone up to being president of the club.
Right, so I guess my trajectory towards power here. I started out just as social chair, And then from there, I became vice president, and last year I was named president of the organization. And it's really been an incredible experience. We've really been able to do some cool things, not only as a team, but also within the community as well, for the sport of boxing and for our own organization.
Okay. So now, as far as last season also, and I think both of you might have mentioned something about this already, two boxers at UNC did fairly well. Michelle Kern, who you've mentioned, I see won the first place in a regional tournament, and you had a third place finish. So what happened after that? If you can refresh me here, I'm not sure if we covered this. Did you and Michelle continue to another tournament?
Definitely. So Michelle went on to nationals, and then all the third place finishers in regional tournaments are generally given an at-large bid in the national tournament, which I thought was what was going to happen. But preference is always given to the seniors, and last year there were more seniors, I think, than they normally have. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to the national tournament. But Michelle went on and competed in nationals up at West Point.
Okay, so she made it all the way to the nationals, which occurred at West Point, which is a military academy, isn't it?
Right.
Something else I'm going to mention in a minute. And something I might have failed to ask. You said that you normally have maybe about 10 students that are actually competing. Other schools, and you said some have been doing this since the 70s, so they're much, probably a lot better established at this point. Do they have a lot more competing, other schools? Is that the case? I mean, do other schools have 20, 30, or is it, what have you seen regarding that?
Oftentimes, that is the case, and it'll be, they'll have maybe 15 people or closer to 10 people. But the thing that I think is a benefit of having a lot of size to your organization is that they're able to fill in the lighter weight classes. But I'll speak about men because that's the ones I guess I know the most about. In the lighter weight classes, for instance, your 112 on up to 119. Sometimes there won't be any competition, and you can literally walk into a first-place finish at regionals. And so that's a significant advantage from a team standpoint. And it's difficult for these younger organizations, I think, to find people in those lighter weight divisions, or actually the heavier weight divisions as well, at either end of the spectrum.
Right. Okay. Well, let me test your knowledge of a little history here. Has anyone from UNC been fortunate enough to qualify for an Olympics or even turn pro? Do you know of anyone?
No, I do not know of anyone from UNC. From our recent organization history, I will say that we had a very, very strong program back in the 30s, and we produced several national champions through that program. We actually were able to meet a few of them last year. It was a pretty cool experience, sort of to see everything come full circle. But I do know of a couple collegiate boxers who are considering going pro or who have gone pro within the organization.
I did a little research on this, but maybe you know better than me. How many colleges around the country have a boxing club? Do you know the number?
It's around, I want to say it's around 50. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But there's sort of these different levels of the organization. So we have the NCBA with, fully sanctioned collegiate bodies. And then there's also a community college level. And then there are organizations who are sort of informal, and they're trying to start their organizations up and get their clubs established on campus, but they're still awaiting formal sanctions from the NCBA.
Right. So there might be a lot that are not sanctioned, so they can't compete yet. But about how many compete? About 50?
I would say so.
Okay. How about other countries, like maybe Canada? Do you guys go international on these things?
That is an option. We've been invited to tournaments in Canada and Ireland as well, European collegiate tournaments. Our own organization hasn't made that trip yet, but I know ECU has, as well as the University of Maryland. Last year, I believe they competed in Ireland against some European collegiate boxers.
Okay, so it does happen in college boxing, as it is established today with the two sanctioning bodies, that some clubs will compete internationally.
Right.
Okay, hopefully that expands. Okay, here's what I was going to ask you about. Since 1976, when the NCBA began, there have been 37 college boxing national championship tournaments. The Nationals. One every year. 37 since 1976. Now, Air Force has won the majority of them, 19. Army, 5. Navy, 5. And only 3 other schools have won a national title. University of Nevada, Westchester, and Nevada, Las Vegas, Lock Haven. Why is it that the military academies have won most of them instead of colleges such as Penn State, UCLA, or Tennessee, all which also have a boxing program? Why is this happening?
Well, Paco, I think there's actually a couple reasons, and Zaki touched on a little bit before. Is one of the biggest things is that they can send so many more people to actually compete, and so it makes it a lot, gives them a great advantage when it comes to the team championship aspect of the competition. The other reason, in which I think it's the bigger reason, is that it's part of their daily routine, their schedule while they're at the academy. It's required of each of them to participate in a organized sport, whether it be a NCAA sport, football or basketball or swimming or anything like that, or if it's a smaller sport or on campus stuff they have, including boxing. And so
right.
They're doing it every day and they're training every day with it, and they also have other physical activities that they do, and they have to stay in tip-top shape, just like any other boxer, but they kind of have access to a lot more of it, and they're it's part of their even curriculum to stay in shape, whereas at institutions like ours, this is voluntary. It's a club. Exactly. It's so that's probably the biggest reason I'd say that they have a little bit of an advantage, and it shows in their team championship ability, I guess.
That makes a lot of sense. If they're all told you must pick a sport, there's going to be some that are going to pick boxing. So it's almost forced on them, I guess. I saw something on your website or Facebook page, not sure which, about calling Duke out, NC State, actually, to also form boxing clubs. Now, you mentioned Wake Forest earlier. But I guess it's beneficial to get everybody involved. So why do you think that some of these schools have not, these colleges have not created boxing clubs?
I just think we've had experience. Some students have approached us about organizing clubs at these universities, and NC State has a stricter policy on any kind of contact sports. I assume it's because of insurance. And as for Duke, there's not much I can say. I guess they're spending more of their money on trying to beat us in basketball, which they haven't been too successful with.
Okay.
But we view ourselves here as a resource. We're one of the more established programs in the state, so we try to help whatever clubs are available to help. For instance, in a couple weeks, we're going to be helping Wake Forest out. They're going to come and visit us, just to show them how to run the organization and give them a little bit of background so that they can get their own clubs established.
So they're a little worried maybe about their students getting a little banged up, but yet they have football, or they might have hockey and some of these other sports, right?
Exactly.
Great. For listeners that may be interested in your program at UNC, are there any important dates that they should know about?
Definitely. So our first club meet is going to be September 3rd. That's a Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. in the Eddie Smith Fieldhouse. Parking is free. You can just search for Eddie Smith Fieldhouse on Google. It's located beside the track. And then we're also very excited. We're going to be hosting our second annual college home show. It's called the Clash at Carolina, and it's going to be hosted on campus Friday, October 10th. It's going to be in the evening. And if you're interested in either one of those, you can stay tuned on our website. Just Google search UNC Boxing, or you can follow us on Twitter at UNC Box.
Absolutely. And it sounds like something that boxing fans around the state should all have a look at and follow and keep up with what's going on at UNC and root for you guys, of course, and all North Carolina clubs. Zach and Blake, I want to thank you once again for your time. I hope we can do this again sometime during the season so we can discuss what's going on up to that point. And I wish your boxing club a lot of luck, and let's see if we can bring some victories. You guys can bring some victories back to North Carolina.
Definitely. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and we definitely look forward to speaking with you in the future. Hopefully, maybe we can get another show in closer to our home show on the 10th.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. You have a good night.
Thank you very much. Take it easy.
All right. I'll have the phone lines open a little while longer. If anyone wants to call in during the show, the number is 605-215-1680. If you do call in, please refrain from profanities. Also, don't stand too close to the speakers that you are hearing this show on. That number again is 605-215-1680. Next Saturday in Greensboro, Walter Johnson Promotions will feature two promising prospects in separate bouts. Undefeated featherweight from Greensboro, Rich Rivers, with a record of 9-0, will be on the card. And in the main event, heavyweight Joshua Too Tough Tufte will also be featured. This is going to be good, and I plan to be there. As a matter of fact, Tufte's wife, Haidary, is holding on to some tickets for me, so don't give those away, Haidary. Also, Spidey Williams of Charlotte has announced that his next fight will be on September 27 in a televised bout in Charlotte. I'm trying to gather more information about that. Hopefully I'll have that to you by next week.
This is the Boxing Talk Show on GAR 1680.
Okay, let's see what else we have coming up. In September, the great coach Al Simpson of the Charlotte Boxing Academy and president of USA Boxing for the Southeast will be holding his second annual First Responders Charity Boxing event in honor and memory of 9/11 victims. Competing against each other will be Charlotte Police Department, Charlotte Fire Department, Mecklenburg County Sheriff Department, and North Carolina Highway Patrol. The team with the most wins will have a portion of the proceeds given to their choice of a local charity. This will take place at the Revolution Park Sports Academy, where the Charlotte Boxing Academy is located on Remount Road in Charlotte. On the following day, September 13, also in the Revolution Park Academy, we will have the Battle of the Carolinas Amateur Boxing Tournament. North Carolina amateur boxers will be matched against South Carolina. I am hearing that there's also the possibility of professional boxing being featured at this event on September 13 in Charlotte. I'll also need to look up what that's about. Remember that you can find information about these events and more taking place here in North Carolina on our blog at gar1680.blogspot.com. When you visit the blog, be sure to click the join button to become a member. Anyone joining as a member of the North Carolina Boxing Talk blog during the week will be mentioned and thanked here on the next radio show. You can find our blog at gar1680.blogspot.com, and it is totally free to join. So I want to thank our newest blog members. We now have Dime Boxer. I know a lot of dime boxers. Carlette Ewell and Tom Wilding. So some familiar names in there. Thank you for joining as a member of the GAR 1680 North Carolina Boxing Talk blog. Anyone wanting to write email can send it to GAR1680 at gmail.com. If you have an interesting story to tell regarding the boxing scene here in North Carolina, I'll read those aloud here on the radio show. You can also call the studio's phone number at any time and leave a message. Be warned, if I like what you say, I might play the recording in an upcoming broadcast of this show. Okay, I guess I'll go ahead and end the show here. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Great show about college boxing. Be sure to comment your thoughts on our blog site, which can be found at gar1680.blogspot.com. I am Paco Rivera. See you next time.
Ladies and gentle ducks, in that corner. He's a dog. And here's round one coming up. 139-10, you're out. The winner and new champion, Daffy Duck. I'm not the one to complain, Mr. Referee, but I thought you said no wuff stuff.